was so gracious to allow me the opportunity to come and talk to you about stress. And I know, so much fun, right? After the holidays and all that. So tonight I am trusting that you're going to walk away with a different view on stress and a few things I love to challenge people to think about their life and see how they might be able to make one little change. Do you know what the difference between 211 degrees and 212 degrees is? 1 degree. But in that 1 degree, it changes to boiling water. And you can't purify water if it doesn't get to boiling. If you just put it at 211, it's not hot enough to kill the bacteria. And so isn't that funny? Just 1 degree. And so tonight, if you could walk away with just that 1 degree that you might be able to look at and how I could approach stress differently, then I will feel like I have achieved, and that more importantly, that God has spoken to your heart and said something to you that he feels like he wants you to hear tonight. So it's an honor to be here. To tell you a little bit about myself, we actually just moved here from Idaho this summer on a day that they were setting records, which I love it. Bring it on. Heat over cold any day. So glad I'm not living where it is snowing and blowing and minus whatever. I will take 75 degrees in January any day. So
Where in Idaho, I have to ask?
Twin Falls.
It's in Boise.
Ah, yes, that we used to go to Boise all the time. We called it Mankato. If you ever watched Little House on the Prairie, when
Yeah.
they go to the big city to go buy the big bag of flour, and because we would literally have a list to go to Boise to buy certain things that we couldn't find in Twin Falls. So
I used to have, when I lived there, they didn't have a mall. It was like I left, they put a mall in. I'm like,
Oh.
really?
that's not
It
fair.
wasn't fair.
And when you say the mall, that's it.
Yeah, but still, I had to, yeah,
Absolutely. Well, to tell you a little bit about myself, I have been a marriage and family therapist for the last 15 years and have my master's in marriage and family, but also my master's in theology. My husband and I have been pastors on several different staffs as we moved around. We've lived in California and Idaho and grew up in Washington State. And so teaching, speaking, helping people transform their lives is something that I love to do and something very passionate about, because I believe we're meant to make a difference. That's the whole reason we have a faith, is to make a difference in our life. And I love helping be an agent in making that happen, because it does matter. And our life is so fast. We have 2 children, 14-year-old son who's going on 30, and a 12-year-old daughter who's probably going on 20. And they keep us humble, and they keep us on our toes, and they keep us realizing how much we don't know. So hopefully,
And even when they're in their 30s, they'll do the same thing for you,
Yes.
trust me.
I can see that now.
Yes.
I go back to my parents now more than ever and say, thank you, or I'm so sorry that I was not more grateful. You're right, I should have done the dishes without complaining. And so, it's so funny, the different perspectives that we come along as we grow up. So tonight, one of the things that I'm going to repeat a couple times, stressful things are going to happen in your life, right? That's never going to change. It doesn't matter how good of a Christian you are, it doesn't matter how perfect of your life you live, stressful things are going to happen, because there's things that we have in our control and there's things that we don't have in our control. And so what are we going to do with that, right? Because stress can create so many other issues in our life. And that's the troubling part when it comes to stress. So let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you lots of questions, and I gave you a piece of paper there with a pen so you can kind of write down, because again, like I said, I love to make you think about your life. And so do not feel like you have to share if you don't want. We'd love for you to, if that feels comfortable to you as well. What would your life look like? What would you be living if you weren't afraid? Something to think about. I wanted to get you thinking about. I'm going to come back to it in a second. On the news, if you're watching the news on Monday morning, January 6th, they announced that that is the most depressing day of the entire year. If you use depressing and swap that word out for stressful, and you know why January 6th was the most depressing, stressful day of the entire year, which thank goodness it's gone now. 3 reasons they listed. It's time to go back to work. It's time to deal with the reality of the debt we created over the holiday season. And it's time to start living out the New Year's resolutions you set for yourself. Interesting, isn't it? You would think that this would be an exciting time, you know? You get a fresh start and start on these new dreams and goals that you have. Instead, it creates so much stress for us. Now, why would setting New Year's resolutions create so much stress for us? Why do the holidays create so much stress for us?
Money,
Pressure.
Pressure. Absolutely.
self-inflicted pressure.
Yes, so much pressure. So let me ask you guys, and Sam, I'll have you come right. This is my husband, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
What creates the most stress in your life? Kids.
Yeah, your spouse.
I think money.
Money.
Could go on that list. I really do. I think that a lot of people that's.
Health.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Connected to health, concern about the future.
What other ones? Traffic. Didn't have that in Idaho.
Your job.
Job, okay. Having just moved here, I'm only 3 miles away from my in-laws. Luckily, I'm very blessed by them, but often in-laws or family, extended family can create a lot of stress. When I was doing my research for this and working with all my clients, a couple of the things that were surprising to me is unrealistic expectations. Either what people put on you, but also what we put on ourselves. But also pleasing others was one of the most stressful things in our life. Feeling like you had to please everybody.
Wouldn't that be the same as codependent?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oprah committee.
You don't know anything about that.
I was talking about Deb.
That's pretty much what you just thought.
The inability to say no.
Yes, yeah, that's really the better way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is silly, right?
Yeah.
Because it's back to the self-inflicted thing. Why did I do that to myself? Absolutely. I think our weight can be really stressful. Or the habits, you know, that, why am I eating this when it makes me feel bad, but I'm doing it anyway? And I think also the media creates a lot of stress.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know?
Learn to turn it off.
Yeah, technology.
Technology. Why technology for you?
Because I'm hooked up to phones at work, phones at home, computer, emails, text messages,
Screens.
everything, yeah. So, I have, 2 and 3 and 4 accounts that I have to constantly look at, check, and work on.
And so the challenge is that you can never turn it off.
Right.
It's always on. And then technology, the one for me in particular, is when it doesn't work. Right?
Right.
Yes. That's why you have other people, like my 14-year-old and my husband, to fix it. Because when it doesn't work, it's like your worst enemy. To, what am I gonna do with this? We're talking about what creates stress in our lives.
And we're not stressed at all.
Being late to a class?
How about that? We won't ask whose fault it was, okay? We came separately. How good is that?
That works?
That's why. We're gonna come together.
Yeah. Well, so many different things in our life create stress without us even realizing what it is that impacts us. I know for me, one of the things that creates the most is when I have a picture of what I want my life to look like, and then when I look at the picture, it's not what I see. And that for me is one of the biggest ones, that incongruency, that I want this, but I don't know how to get it, or I want this, but it's not happening. Why is it not happening? It must be my fault, whatever. And that's the piece that can create so much stress, right? That wanting something that's not happening in our life. So to go back, to ask the question again for some, that what would your life be like? What would you have if you weren't afraid? Huge. Peace. I need a little more sleep. Maybe a few less pounds, maybe so many things. So one of the things I want to offer up to you to consider, when you think about the word stress, tonight I would love for you to replace the word stress with the word fear. Because the truth is, think about all of these things. The things that create stress in your life, what's behind all of it? Fear. I'm afraid my kids are gonna be rotten and end up in prison and still living at my house when they're 25, 30, 40. My spouse, that they're not gonna love me, they're not gonna get me, they're not gonna be there for me, I'm not gonna have enough money, I'm not gonna have the health that I want, I'm gonna live in pain the rest of my life, right? That fear of all of these things is the thing that drives our stress. But we see it as stress because using the word stress is acceptable. Instead of saying, I'm afraid. I'm afraid I'm gonna lose my health. I'm afraid I'm gonna lose my job. I'm afraid I'm gonna lose my kids, right? But behind all of this is this fear underneath everything. And stress, this fear that we have in our life, creates so much in our life. Not only disconnections in our relationships, but it has a huge physical effect on our life. And I know that you're gonna sit there and go, yeah, we've heard this before because it's all over the news, right? But I just wanted to share a couple stats that I found. 43% of all adults suffering adverse health effects from stress. 43% of our health is affected by stress. 75% to 90% of all doctor visits are for stress-related ailments and complaints. If you take that 75% of the time we're in the doctors because we're stressed. Because we're living in a place of fear and not managing it. So now it's playing out where it's going sideways on us now, right? It's playing out because we're not getting the sleep, we're not eating healthy, we're not exercising, we're not in balance with ourselves, we're not in alignment with what we really want, what God created us to be, and where we want to go. And we're stuck. But how often, and so please hear my heart in this, I am not a guilt tripper. That is the last thing I want you to feel walking out of this.
off the guilt.
Right? I was born and raised in the church, and let me tell you, they had a way of making you feel guilty about everything. That is not me. It doesn't work because it just adds to the fear and the stress. I am here to help walk away with some things to say, you know, I might need to consider that in my life. Maybe I need to look at that. Maybe that's an area that I need to change. Okay? That's all I'm saying tonight. So if some of this, you've just been to the doctor this last week and going, oh no, that's what the doctor just said. It's not what I'm intending on that. Some other interesting facts. 50 common signs and symptoms of stress. So symptoms that you're in a place of fear. I thought those kind of interesting. Grinding your teeth, stuttering or stammering, tremors, neck pain and back pain, headaches, dizziness, ringing, frequent sweating. I think my son has that one. Maybe that's just stinky. Sweaty hands, dry mouth, excessive belching. Did not know that one. I might have to talk to my dad about that one. Difficulty breathing, sudden attacks, panic attacks, chest pain, insomnia, difficulty concentrating, trouble learning new information, forgetfulness. Okay, that one might be mine. We were just talking about how I have to write it down and I forget. Difficulty making decisions, increased frustration, overreaction to petty annoyances. I don't know about you, but as a parent, that might get me on that one. Social withdrawal, frequently use of over-the-counter drugs, weight gain or loss, excessive gambling or impulsive buying. That I just highlighted there as I was skimming through it. 50 physical signs that they have been able to track to prove that stress, fear, how it affects our physical body. I think part of it is we're so used to it, we don't think about the consequences of it. We don't think about its true effects on us. Because, well, it's just life, right? It's just life. But not life when we call ourselves a Christian. That isn't the acceptable way to live our life. It's constantly under stress, and having this temple that God created be something that's under so much stress, it's not functioning the way He created it to be, right? Because of something that we really do have a choice over. We really do have control over. I know in your minds you might be going, well, you've never met my husband, and you've never met my kids, and you have no idea what my job's like. You're right, I don't, and I didn't say it was gonna be easy. And that's where I would invite you tonight to ask, okay, God, what is it that you would want me to hear and see for my life and where I'm at right now? There's two types of stress that I wanna talk to you guys about. And it might seem, we've talked about it a little bit, but it's the one I have never heard of really a whole lot, and that's the stress that I create myself. The stress that I choose by decisions I make, good or bad, but the decisions I make, right? It can be positive things, going after my New Year's resolution, setting goals, going to the gym, whatever it might be, and yet it creates stress in my life. Not living within my budget, not dealing with conflicts instead of avoiding them, having poor boundaries in relationships. I'm curious as you think, and again, I'm not asking this to be a confession time, of areas in your life that you create stress.
Going back to school, like changing your career and stuff like that.
Going back to school is a huge one. Huge. Not only the financial side, but the time side of it, and the stress of being prepared, and this temporary, it's like this stopgap until you get to do what you really want.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what my husband just did. So it puts stress on the whole family.
Whole
You know,
family.
It's crazy, yeah.
Because everybody has to compensate. Everybody has to adjust.
Yep. Yep. It's hard, so.
Very hard. Very hard. Absolutely. My husband and I created stress in our life by choosing to move here. And I admit, in all honesty, when Kimberly asked me about speaking on stress, we talked about some different topics, and I was like, okay, God, you seriously have a sense of humor. Not. You know, like, okay, this is not funny, right? Because I confess to you that this has been, we've been married for 20 years now. This has been in the top 2 most stressful times of our entire life. Moved here, thinking, we know that this was the right move for us. But it hasn't all worked out like we thought. It hasn't all worked out like we planned. My husband had a job when we were on our way to move here, and then it fell through. What do you do when you've already bought a house and you've already got your kids in school? What do? You already let go of your jobs back in Idaho. Now what do? And I gotta admit, it has been a humbling process as I was getting ready for this talk tonight to say, okay, God, I get it. You're talking to me too. That this is so much in all of our lives. Do I believe God abandoned us? No, I don't. Do I have all the answers? No, and I wish I did. Right? This has been a very difficult time because part of the thing that creates stress, especially when I choose it, one of the things that we've heard a lot is, well, you did it to yourselves. I don't know why you're complaining. Well, you were the fools to go walk away from jobs when you didn't have a job. Well, you were the ones, why didn't you just get an apartment instead of buying a house? All those things. And yet but I know that this was the right decision for us. You're right, those all seem like simple answers, but that's not that simple, right, when it plays out? Because buying an apartment, that means what if we buy a house and now our kids have to go to different schools, they have to make new friends again. That's not fair to them. Nothing's that simple, right? And so I sit here going, oh, I'm in this process as much as anybody, figuring this out as I go. And I hope as we go through it, understanding that I do trust in a Heavenly Father who is going to get us through this. One day at a time. One day. So I appreciate this opportunity to live my faith, not just speak about it. And sit here as, I don't know about you, but I hate reading books and I hate listening to speakers that stand there and go, I am the expert on this, and I've never fought with my spouse in the last 50 years, and I never have these doubts, but I understand you all have these doubts, and you all struggle with your kids, and I haven't struggled with that, and I don't know about you, don't you hate that? Like, I'd much rather have someone be real and honest and say, I'm in this too, than to sound like you have all the answers, because I don't. None of us do. So I hope you hear my heart tonight as we talk about this, because it is definitely near and dear. So I'm gonna ask the question again. How do you create stress in your own life? One of the things that I found really interesting as a therapist, how many parents would come in and talk about the stress their kids were creating in their life. I'm a parent, so please hear me on this. I create stress with my kids sometimes, right? I overreact. I don't really listen to them. I jump on their case before they've even had a chance to say anything. A lot of the parents I worked with that they would get so worried and so stressed about their kids because they were being disrespectful and they weren't listening. But then when you got a chance to talk to the kids, the parents weren't really respectful and weren't listening. And so do you see the stress we create? Why would I expect something different out of my life or different from my kids when I wasn't living that myself? I created that, right? But we don't see it that way, right? Because it's just, well, I'm the parent, I have the right to do it. They should be listening to me. I wish. It just doesn't work that way, does it? In any relationship, when it's our spouse, when it's our kids, when it's a friend. So who am I in my relationships? Who am I in the world? How do I relate to it? And what am I contributing to the stress around me? That I'm so angry all the time. I'm so depressed. I'm so frustrated that I can't see past my own situation and my own circumstance. And so I say, I don't have any friends. Well, are you being a friend? Are you somebody that you would want to have as a friend? One of the things I found fascinating in doing counseling was, I'll be real honest, I found this in Christians more often than non-believers, that as Christians we create a lot of stress for ourselves because we've bought into this belief that somehow we are holier, more spiritual, more faith-based if I'm suffering. If I'm struggling, if I'm in a bad place, that somehow that was more of a godly place than a place of, no, that's unhealthy. God didn't call us to live in a place of suffering, in a place of chaos, in a place of pain. Does it happen at times? Yes. But it was never the intention to stay in that place, right? Otherwise, there's no purpose in the cross. We could just stay in that place of pain and hurt and suffering. And so one of the things I found fascinating was challenging people. It's okay to feel good about yourself. It's okay to live in joy and have peace. But how often do we really live in that space? Why wouldn't we want to live in that space? But we do it to ourselves, right? We stay up too late when we have to get up early. You drink too much, you eat too much, you whatever. You don't take care of you. And then we wonder why we feel rotten, why we're frustrated and angry. I'm not sure if you've heard of this concept before. It was new to me this last year. It's called the upper limit problem. Have you ever heard of that? I thought it was a fascinating theory that has been developed, that on an unconscious level, we have created this upper limit of how good we can feel. Now obviously it's not a conscious thing that I've decided, okay, I can feel 50% good or 80% good. And it tends to vary whether it be financial or relationship or physical, that we have this upper limit of feeling good. When we hit that upper limit, we intuitively, instinctively start sabotaging it in order to come back down to a place that we feel comfortable. Ever love Misery Loves Company? So instead of being in this place that I feel really good and I love my life, have you ever done this? Where you're feeling so good, you're loving your life, and then you come home and start an argument? Or it's been this great day, and then you'll notice that one thing that your kids didn't do. Or you notice that one thing your spouse didn't say, right? Why do we do that? And the truth is, we do not have to get locked into this upper limit that I'm locked into this level. We really can keep extending it. We can keep growing it because it is in our awareness and understanding that I deserve more. It's okay to have more. It's okay to be at peace. It's okay to live in this place of joy. Hard to imagine, because if you watch the news at all, our society thrives on us suffering. Our society thrives and feeds off of us being miserable. They don't fill it full of good stuff, they fill it full of bad stuff, right? The reality shows. It's because what horrible thing is gonna happen next, not because of the great things that's gonna happen next. I swear, one of the things that I would love to do in my lifetime, with all the award shows coming up now with the Golden Globes and whatever else, I'm like, are you serious? How many award shows can those actors create for themselves? Think about it for a second. They reward themselves with awards for acting like somebody else. And they get paid tons of money for it. That is just absurd to me. Then why are we not having award shows for people who've made a difference? For people that have contributed something, who've saved lives, who have done things that really mattered, instead of acting like somebody else. This upper limit problem. I have a sister and I love her dearly, and this summer she got married. My husband performed her ceremony, and she has been divorced for the last 12 years. And she's had a tough life, was horribly burned when she was 17, disfigured. In some ways, not that you would necessarily see it right off, but as you look at her, you would realize that, okay, wait, something's kind of different. She had her ear amputated, her thumb amputated, and put a toe on for a thumb. And the part that makes me so sad with my sister is she has married this wonderful man who loves her, who's a firefighter. Here she was burned, talk about somebody who could get it, somebody who could bring peace, that safety piece in her life that she's always so worried something's gonna catch fire again, and I get it. Here she is married, should be at the happiest time of her life, and she's miserable. She has found more things to be angry about, complain about, get upset about than you can ever imagine, over the stupidest things that you can ever imagine. I'm not kidding on stupid, like stupid, right? Can you justify?
I'm vouch for it.
Why? And I honestly believe it's because she was so used to struggling in her life. She doesn't know how to just relax in the beauty of her life now. And so she's got to create it in other areas of her life. And it's so sad, because it doesn't have to be that way. And as much as you try to talk about it, it still doesn't happen. And at some point, in my relationship with her, creating stress, you have to let it go, right? I love you enough to say, you can have your opinion, but I have to take a step back. Even when you love the person. Crazy, isn't it? It just drives me insane, because we really do get to create so much in our own life. My tagline on my website, if you go there, is create the life you're gonna love. Create the life you'll love. Because we really do get that choice on being able to create what we are gonna love. One of the things I found, and I confess this is really bad in my family, I found in working with people that it was easier for them to talk about the pain and the suffering that they were going through than it was to talk about the good things going on in their life. And I get it in the way, in terms of therapy, because they weren't coming to celebrate all their joys, they were coming because they needed help to work on something, and I get that. But it was interesting how easy it was to go to the place of pain than it is to go to the place of joy. In this move that Sam and I have just done, and the stress that we've had, I'll call family, at different times, checking in, how the kids, whatever. And when I talk about the stress going on, when I talk about the fear happening for us, they are right there, empathetic, loving, so supportive. But then because you know how you go into different spaces, right? Mm-hmm. But then when I'm in the space of, I'm doing really good, I'm so excited that we took this big step in our life, we wanted to do this, this was about accomplishing some dreams of ours, and moving forward, and doing it, you know what I get? Jealousy. Well, aren't you so special that you get to go do that? Well, wish I could have done that. Well, aren't you just so lucky? I bet you have this nice new house. Really? Isn't it interesting? Same people, same family that love each other. And when I'm in a place of struggling, they can give empathy. When I'm in a place of strength and confidence, they want to shoot me down. Watch it all over the news. We love shooting down leaders, right? People like Martha Stewart is a great example of it. She had all that success, and people loved watching her fall. Loved it. Why? Why would we do that? Why would we love watching somebody else fall. Especially people that we don't know. The guy that kidnapped those 3 girls and kept them fall, right? That's okay. I don't have empathy for you. That was awful what you did. I understand you're a child of God, and I'm really gonna let God deal with you because you would not like what I would have to do to you. Oh, so why do we create this? I'm curious, talking about, because so much of the way we deal with stress is what we saw growing up. What was the kind of stress in your families when you were growing up? What did you see?
Money issues.
Pardon me?
Money issues.
Money. That's a big one. You're smiling.
I think she saw the whole list. Unfortunately.
I saw, it's remarkable to watch things come full circle, right? So I saw a lot of the same, I recognize it in my own life, it's just garbage, and realizing that I see it, so I acknowledge of it, therefore I don't have to go to that place, does that make sense?
Mhm.
And I see the things that my parents struggle with, I don't necessarily struggle with those exact same things, but like the very real reaction, the fear of what if I become that person? What if it kind of sneaks in the back door for me. I can't explain it, like money issues and relationship issues. I'm in a very different place maritally than my own parents were. And just earlier today, we were discussing how I'm still struggling at times to just enjoy our happiness and focus on that rather than the few little things that are troublesome. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. It is. And part of that is because the things that we really enjoy, we don't have to worry about.
Right.
It brings us joy, but it's those things that we worry about, can I say, the infection bug, if you will. You know, but you didn't really listen to me here, and well, you didn't do what you said here, and you know, these things, and if this isn't dealt with, then it's gonna create something bigger, and it's gonna take away this joy that I have over here. And so it is very real to focus on the things that, that scare us.
Fear.
But, yeah.
Just fear.
It is fear. But then, you know, with even the understanding, even some research that we know now, that the more you focus on something, the more you create it in your life, because you're looking for it, right? And but we're trained to keep that sensory out there because we want to make sure that we don't get hurt again. And then the really sad part in our life, if I went around the room, I bet most of us could tell you the top 5 things of how we've been hurt in our life and devastated, and we might take a little bit of time to think about the 5 greatest joyful moments in our life. And that's all I'm asking, is that we start looking at it different so that we can start making that switch, because I truly believe to the core of me, that's never the way God intended it. That is why He sent His Son, so we wouldn't have to live like that anymore. That we could live in a place of peace and joy, with stress, with whatever else it creates, right? So we get to create stress, good and bad, by our own choices. But the second type of stress is the one that's beyond our control, right? The one that is the natural disasters, the economy, the 9/11s of the world, right? Those are things I can't control. Birth defects of my children, beyond doing everything I possibly can to stay healthy. I can't control that. My mother-in-law, I can't control. The stress beyond me, right? I'm just kidding, because she's wonderful. So that's how I can tease about her. What are some other of the stresses that we can't control? What comes to your mind?
Other people's reactions.
Yes. Their reactions, what they think, what
Or
they
lack
say.
of, or lack thereof.
Other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other people, period.
Yeah. control a drunk driver. I can't control the decisions my kids might make that puts them in harm's way. Isn't it funny how some of those can be such both and?
Right.
Because I can create death by not taking care of myself or, you know, living an unhealthy lifestyle.
Well, but that would be like death for somebody else, of somebody not taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
But you can't control it because you can't make them live a healthier lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those people that won't listen.
Oh,
Yes.
firsthand.
I always get a kick out of the formulas that they have for answering the question of how much money do I need to retire? And they have these fancy formulas, and they're gonna tell you at the end of that how much you need. Well, that's good, except that you don't know how long you're gonna live. You don't know what your health is going to be like, and you have no idea what the economy is going to be like. So those are three pretty big factors that are gonna affect how much money you need. And they're all, for the most part, completely out of your control.
So
But you can spend a lot of time worrying about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I do.
Well, and I think that's it. That's the part that that's where I don't want any guilt to come in tonight, that the sense of, so if you're in a place of stress and fear that you're in this bad place and shame on you, sin, that's not at all what I'm saying. I think that's where that sense of stress and fear comes in, is that we notice it. We say, okay, what is going on that I need to pay attention to? What's going on that I'm, can I say, out of alignment or out of whack, you know? And what can I do to get back? It really is that simple, but it's so hard in the moment. And again, it might be, okay, I need to change my attitude, you know, right? It needs to be, okay, it's gonna take me a little bit of time, but I'm doing things intentionally to change it. That's what makes the difference. Instead of, I'm a victim to my circumstance, I'm a victim to what's happening around me. That's where we get ourselves in trouble. That's where we create more stress for ourselves. So I'm curious. We talked about what stress happened in our family. How did your family handle stress?
Ignore it, it'll go away.
Yeah, just don't talk about it.
Don't talk about it.
They were the opposite, we yell.
Yep.
Yeah, we yell, yeah.
My family yelled, my husband's family did not.
Both sides yelled. Yeah. They were all very vocal people.
Wow.
And
Which
I'm
works
married
in
into
mine.
it too. Ooh, so go figure, right? Yeah.
In some ways, it's a challenge because it's a language you know, but in another way, when they don't fight that way, then it makes it a lot more challenging to figure out how are we gonna make this work, you know, because you're not doing it
What's
the right
wrong
way.
with you?
Yeah,
Why aren't you yelling at me? Come on.
That's the natural way to go.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and don't you dare say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, that is not the trap door to let you out of this argument, because we're talking about it.
I don't care how mad you are, we're not going to bed angry, we're gonna battle this out. That was one thing, I never like to go to bed angry, just because you never know. And I will never, ever go to bed angry.
Yeah.
So, you can sit there and pretend like you're asleep all you want, we're gonna talk. We're gonna do it.
I'm gonna beat it out of you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, how does that work for you?
Pretty much.
Definitely, and can I say at the same time, and this is my therapist side, is sometimes the best thing to do is to cool off for a while and come back at it later.
Right.
Because we are so far gone, our rationale and our calmness
Yeah.
is not good. Just like, and that's with anything, whether it be our spouse, our kids, decisions, even driving, we shouldn't be doing at times, sometimes when we're so upset, because we're not thinking clearly. Yeah, yelling. Those are probably the two most classic. Scream and yell, fight it out, or don't do anything, don't say anything. Or for some families, they saw a lot of drinking. You know, when things got stressful, out came the alcohol. Or, I don't know if any of you, whoever was stressed left. They got in their car and left, and somehow the next morning they were back, or maybe a couple days later they were back, or yeah.
Well, I'm a special kind of screwed up because my mother would yell and fight and try to provoke my father to something. And my father would just get to a place where he had enough and he would shut down and just wouldn't respond at all. So then my mother would start slamming cabinets and doors and then passive aggressive behavior would start. So it was all over the board in my family of origin. So it sent tons of different messages to me. So, and I have since, of course, now that I'm older, talked to other people who, when you recognize, when you're a zebra and you see another zebra, you go, oh, really? And it kind of helps.
Yeah.
To know that other people have experienced that, and not just one extreme or the other. I had several extremes in my home.
It's always nice to know you're not alone. That you're
It
not
is.
the only.
Even if the
crazy
ship
one.
is sinking, it's okay to know you have someone with you, yeah.
Yeah, you bet. That was fascinating, working with people that came from a lot of trauma, like where there was a lot of violence in the home, is they didn't know anything different. Or parents that did a lot of drugs and when their kids were little, and you would work with the kids and they would be like, aren't all families like this? I thought all families were like this. You're like, no, not all families are like this. And then when you come to a family that's a normal, you know, they're dealing with things, and you're like thinking, we're the abnormal family. Nobody fights like this at home, you know. Just interesting how we fill in the gap and explain what it is. So, yeah, funny.
You know, just another observation. I guess our family had relationship issues too, and that was a major cause of stress. But on the other hand, this was an era where family, the larger family, lived closer. And so while you might have relationship issues with some people, you could always find others who you could go to.
Mm-hmm.
And as a little kid, I could always go next door to my grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
If I got in trouble at home, they'd always take me. But even as adults, you could find others. There was a support group
Yeah.
within the family. Even though some elements of the family were at stress points, there were good parts too. And I think a lot of people these days have a tough issue at home, but they don't have anything else. They
Yeah.
haven't got a support group to go to.
Yeah, you bet.
Oh, I think that's, and we don't talk to neighbors. I mean, you live in a neighborhood, it used to be you knew everybody, everybody talked to everybody, and now, you can have people living next door to you, and they don't even talk.
You're scared to know your neighbors
Yes,
half the
yeah.
time. Step out, you're like, oh, I think I'm going back inside. My husband walked out the other day and the neighbors in the front yard, the one went inside and grabbed a bat and was trying to hit his son or whoever, and my husband went back inside, he's like, okay, I'm not leaving yet. I'm like,
Wow.
yeah, it's scary, you don't wanna know people because there's so many crazies out there.
Yes.
We have our own little house and we're in that house and that's about,
Yeah.
you know?
And yet, going back again, it just makes our world so much smaller because of that fear that creeps in, instead of, what about all the wonderful people I am missing out on because they're so wonderful? Yeah, and that's the part I just wanna keep calling you to.
That's why we come here.
Yeah, we have a wonderful neighborhood group. You can come over to our house. We get together every Friday. It's called Friday on Frank. Laura Wright, she lives in my neighborhood, and we have the most wonderful group of people. So, and one of the reasons we moved back was to live closer to family, so that our kids especially had a place to go beyond us. Because it does matter, and it is important to have that sense of help. So let me give you some just really practical, and I know you might say, oh, I've heard that before. Great, you've heard it before. I just want to remind you, because it's so easy to forget some of the ways that we can get help when we are stressed. One of it is to actually ask for help, to go find help from a professional, from a friend, from a family member, from your spouse. But you do not have to do this all by yourself. And we could grade stress, right? We could grade it from top, my husband and my spouse is hitting me, to an alcoholic, all right, that's high stress, I'm in the middle of a divorce, to I've had a really bad day at work and I just want to go to bed, or I didn't have a good night's sleep, right? All sorts of varying degrees of stress. But you know the one that has been with you for so long. It's been the way you've operated for so long, and that's the one I'm talking to you about. That maybe it's time to go ask for help. Maybe it's time to go talk to somebody. Because if you've been struggling with it all on your own, you're burning up energy that you don't have to be. Absolutely. Delegating things to your family can be very helpful, including children. Instead of trying to do everything yourself. That's one of the things about the holidays that creates so much stress, is thinking I have to do it perfect. That I have to do, my house has to look perfect, I have to find the perfect gift, I have to look perfect, right? Whatever, you know, why do we do that to ourselves? It doesn't change the meaning of Christmas. Why did I do that to myself? And so being able to ask for help from professionals, from family, and even your kids, in terms of being able to ask what you expect from them. I expect you to, whatever that might be. I can tell my kids, I'm gonna have a really busy day, and I know already that by the time I get home, I'm gonna be tired, so here's what I need from you. Right? If I don't tell them, and I come home, and the house is a mess, and whatever, do I have a right to be angry with them? No, I never communicated it to them. So being able to bring them in, as appropriate, I know a little older changes things. Communicate what you need. My husband and I have a habit of, whenever we're traveling anywhere, especially, or we're doing a new event, we say to each other, what do you need from me? And we answer it, here's what I need from you. So help me if you leave me alone in the room with crazy Aunt Cindy, I'm gonna be ticked, you know? Right? I need us to be leaving by this time because we're gotta get up early, or whatever it might be. But being able to point blank directly ask for what you need from your spouse, especially. From when families getting together, I had 15 people at our house last year in Idaho, all families staying for 10 days. And we had 2 bathrooms. It was crazy, but it was so much fun. But I would tell them, here's what I need from you.
I got you beat.
Yeah.
13 people for 10 days, 3 bedroom, 1 bath. Yeah, never happened again, ever. And it was the in-laws. Never happened again.
Yes.
I wondered why we moved 1,200 miles away from them. Yeah,
Totally
I'll
understand.
tell you, stress. And my husband purposely stayed late at our business one night, and I got him on the phone and I said, I locked myself in the bedroom. I don't know what is happening out there. I have one of the children in with me. You best get home because I don't know what's happening out there, but I'm not coming out. And if I have to, I'm crawling out the window. And we lived in Washington and it was cold. And he goes, what? And I said, exactly. You can't hide from your parents. Don't stick them on me. And I said, I'm out of here. He was home in 5 minutes.
You got it. You asked for what
No, I asked for it. I was like, no way. You can't do it. Like, each night it kept getting later and I'm like,
No.
they're not my parents. They're not my brothers and sisters, my grandparents and my aunt all in my house. Yeah, that's stress.
Yeah.
And that's something you can't control
No.
unless you tell them next time, don't come.
Yeah. But, or you learn, like, I know a certain family, you know, you need to stay at a hotel.
Right.
I love you, but staying at my house, you stress me out.
Mm-hmm.
I love my dad. I tell him, Dad, when you come, do not tell me all the things you don't like about my house. Just zip it. I don't want to hear it. Right? It's my house. I'm 43 years old. I have the right to tell my dad that, respectfully, not meanly, you know, you make it kind of fun, right? But if you don't say those things, they don't know that's what you need from them. And so being able, and it really is okay to say those things, even if your family doesn't believe it. It is okay to say those things. Plan ahead. You know taxes are coming up. Start taking care of things now. Don't wait. You know, if you got a family vacation coming up, so reducing stress, plan ahead. Think ahead. Don't just think about today, because when you only think about today, you're constantly stuck in survival mode. Constantly. You don't ever get to get out of that place. If you have family visiting, have a plan, you know, have the projects done.
There's a hotel close.
Yeah.
Bring in porta potty.
Bring in a bottle of wine. No, kidding. Create a timeline for yourself. What needs to be done today? What needs to be done this week? What needs to be done this month? Again, getting out of that day-to-day living, but what do I need to do to start getting myself up? Maybe there's a person in my life that I need to only talk to once a week instead of every day. Maybe it's gonna spread out more every other week kind of thing. What do I need to do? But actually think about it and plan it out. Pay attention to the pain in your body is another big one when it comes to dealing with stress. Your pain, we know by the 50 things that I mentioned, that our body stores our stress. So where is it at for you? So if your shoulders are hurting, if your back's hurting, if your feet are, what is it that your body is communicating to you? Can I just encourage you, the next time you have a headache, the next time you are feeling pain in your body, instead of quickly going and grabbing your Advil, stopping and asking, okay, God, what is going on inside my body? What is it that you're trying to tell me? Because oftentimes, that's why we end up in the doctor's office spending a lot of money, because we end up not dealing with the real issues. And we end up going through life just medicating ourselves instead of addressing the real issues. And we all tend to have a certain spot that we keep our pain. You know, we have our trigger points. Being realistic in your life. Don't try and lose 30 pounds in 30 days. Don't try and earn $1 million in the next 6 months. Don't try and, you know what I mean? Be realistic with yourself and what you can do and what you can handle. And the last practical thing I give you is breathe. It is the most important thing we can do in any moment is breathe. And I'm not talking, I'll tell my kids to breathe and they'll be like, you know, it's like, okay, that doesn't work. It actually makes it worse. No, but if you breathe to the point that you can, if you put your hand over your belly button and you try to extend your stomach, breathing that deeply until your heart rate and everything else can come back down again. Breathing, having something to eat, and exercise are the 3 fastest ways to bring our stress level back down again. And exercise could be like walking, it could be doing sit-ups, it could be doing anything. So I'm not talking go to the gym and take a Zumba class or something. So it is fun. That's de-stressing. Exercise definitely is a huge way to reduce the stress. Because when we don't, we've got to start looking at what the consequences are. How does it affect our family, our health, our situation? And so here's one of the number one pieces of thing I want to just remind you of, because you know this already. You are a child of God. There's nothing you can do to make him love you more, and there's nothing you can do to make him less. So what are we afraid of? If we looked at stress, our fear through the lens of God's love and grace, does it change our perspective at all? If we know that God will never leave us or forsake us, because he promised us that, right? Deuteronomy 31:6, he promised us that. And if we believe it, then what do we have to be afraid of? Don't get me wrong. I understand there's things that happen in our life. I don't want to lose my children. I don't. I don't want to lose my husband. I don't want to lose my house, right? But at the same time, at the end, if I lose all of that, am I still okay? Because that is where our relationship with God comes into play. Because he is bigger than all of that. He is enough because he's still with us. And the challenge is when all of those other things happen, it plants these seeds of mistrust in God, right? How can I trust you when you did this to me? How can I trust you when you allowed this to happen? Instead of saying, I trust you with my entire life, no matter what that looks like. Please hear my heart. I'm not always good at that. But it's the thing I'm striving for every day, every year. I want to get better at it. Because I've got 2 kids watching me. I've got other people watching, and I want to do it the best that I can. And part that I would ask you, so if today, whatever stress you're going on in today, if you were to look a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, eternity, would what you're going through right now really matter? Is it as stressful as we're creating it to be right now in our life? See, as Christians, this is where we really do have a peace and a hope and a joy that surpasses no matter what's going on in our life. And we forget that. I've been a Christian for as long as I can remember. Now, why in moments do I forget that? And in part, I want to invite you in those moments when you're crying out, when you're so frustrated, when you've got so much fear, when you've got so much stress, when you're asking yourself, how could this have happened to me? It's in those moments that I want you to not pray for clarity. I know that sounds crazy. I don't want you to pray for clarity. I want you to pray for more trust. That you can trust in this Heavenly Father that sent His Son to die on the cross for us, and nothing is ever going to change that. You see, because when we pray for clarity, what we're really doing is looking for an answer good enough so I don't have to trust God as much. Right? If I have clarity, that means I have the answer. That means I've got confidence. Okay, I see the plan. I see the way I'm supposed to go. And so therefore I don't have to trust that God's really in all of this. It eliminates the risk of trusting God. And here's the heart of trust. I believe you enough. I'm willing to let go. Even though I don't understand and I don't see how this is all going to work out. That's the difference. That's the place in stress that, yes, we'll have moments where it gets fired up. But being able to step back into the place that says, but I trust something bigger than this situation has created in my life. And I'm going to trust in a Heavenly Father who loves me so much that that will never change. It's that kind of stress, it's stressful situations that create opportunities to grow. So what would change in your life if you viewed stress and if you viewed fear as an opportunity to mold you more into being Christ-like? Something to think about. Something to ask yourself as you move forward in your life. How might this be molding me to be more Christ-like? Because it's too easy to be bitter and angry and spiral and be depressed. I want to open it. I realize we're out of time, but if you have any questions, and forgive me, I meant to pass this around, but see, I didn't write myself a note to do that.
Both sides or
Just one. Or you can pass it that way, we can go faster. If you are interested in being on my newsletter or getting more information, I send out quotes, I send out things to think about, questions. If you're interested in that, put your name down and you'll be added to the list. Also, I wanted to provide the little half-sheet, little piece of paper in front of you. I am committed and believe in giving people opportunities to continue to ask themselves great questions, to ask themselves to be intentional in their life and the goals and the dreams that they have, because it goes by so fast. And so January 23rd, coming up here in just a couple weeks, I'm doing an all-day seminar, 10 to 2 seminar on exactly that. How do you be intentional in your life? How do you get organized? How do you see things so that you can follow through on the things that you're dreaming of for your life? Because if you keep putting it off, it just keeps getting put off, right? It doesn't happen. Because doing it tomorrow never works. I wanted to mention about my book. It's called How Could This Happen? I wrote it for parents that have gone through difficult situations with one of your children. And I found you don't have children at home anymore, that several people have read it and said, wow, that was so helpful to understand what my kids are going through with their kids kind of thing. But it was written out from my heart from what happened with my sister and being so horribly burned at such a young age and how it totally disrupted our family, and really just meant to be a really practical guide to help parents have the tool to see the whole family and get through it thriving again, not just surviving. I will tell you up front, I did not write it from a Christian perspective, although I refer to my faith in it, because I wanted to be able to, I didn't want only Christians to buy it. I wanted it to be a resource for everybody, so I could get the opportunity to tell you about my faith and how that piece brought me through that awful time. And then the last thing I just wanted to offer you, you have my business card in front of you. If you are interested at all, if any of this resonated with you, if there's anything in this that you want to discuss more, please take me up on a complimentary session with me. We can talk on the phone, we can meet at Starbucks, we can do Skype, whatever feels most comfortable to you. But I just want to offer you the opportunity to have a chance to talk to someone and get that outside opinion, feedback, help. And if there's something that I know of that might be able to help you in the situation you're in, I'd love to refer you to that. If I might be able to help you, I would love the opportunity to do that as well. Because there does come a day it's too late. And why wait? You're worth the investment. You're worth the time. And the truth is, and forgive me for saying this, I've just done this too long. If the first thing you said in your head was, I don't have the money for that, at the end of the day, it's choices. Either you're gonna pay for the doctor bill because the stress is playing out in your life, or you're gonna be paying for it to be intentional and to grow and you have more control over it. Or you're just gonna be sending your kids to therapy, right? But, any questions that you guys might have, anything? Thank you so much for the opportunity.
It's
We'll be
very
around.